Welcome in. Belly up, have a seat, and grab a drink as we talk some Wingman Fantasy Football. Welcome into another edition of Wingman Fantasy Football, the League Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Furley, and as always, I'd like to thank all of you, or any of you who may be watching or listening to today's show. And as always, I am joined by my good pal over here, Mr. Bernie, aka Team B.
I'm Cuban B. Yes, Cuban B.
How are you doing today, Mr. Bernie?
I am doing all right today, buddy.
All right. I want to thank you so much for joining me. I know takes a lot of time, and I do appreciate your effort and commitment.
Always my pleasure. Always my pleasure.
All right, guys. This is episode 93, Week 1 Rewind. In this episode, we will recap the Week 1 in the Wingman Fantasy Football League. We'll also take a look at the updated standings. We will get our very first Mike Rant of the 2024 season. We will take a look at the waiver wire targets. We'll play a little game called Start, Bench, Cut. But before we do any of that, let's make sure that everybody is in the room. Wingman Assemble! All right, now that everyone is here, let's check in on some player news. And this news is not good, guys. I am so sorry about that. Starting off with Puka Nacua. Hakuna Matata. We're not getting the good vibes here from now on. I'm sorry, but I just love that sound so much. Puka Nacua is expected to be placed on the IR with a designation to return, where he will miss a minimum of 4 games. Christian McCaffrey was a surprise inactive on Monday night, letting nobody know that they were going to miss except for Jordan Mason, who knew on Friday, apparently. Did not pass that information along to anybody. We also have David Njoku is dealing with an ankle sprain and may miss a couple of weeks. Jordan Love, who sustained a knee injury on the second to last play of Friday night's game in Brazil. At the moment, he is not expected to be placed on IR, meaning he may return in less than the 4 weeks required to miss if he was placed on IR. And both Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert, a pair of Dolphins running backs, are dealing with injuries and have yet to practice this week before their short week, as the Dolphins will host the Bills on Thursday night. And Ken Walker, Texas Ranger, left the game early on Sunday after a monster performance in the second half with an abdominal strain. Right now, he is listed as questionable. Is there anything you want to add to the news or add to that at this point? Excuse me.
No, just a little get well soon, Ken Walker, and you pretty much wrap that up.
All right, guys, we're going to get right into it. Let's get into the Week 1 Rewind.
Let's go back.
Week 1 Rewind.
All right, guys, we're going to get right into it. We're going to start off with our first game on the docket. This was Ken's The Fantastics up against yours truly, Michael's Amazing Spidey. And in this game, we had a pretty big defeat as Fantastics defeated Amazing Spidey 97.36 to 79.84. The Fantastics had top performers of Tyreek Hill, who had scored 22.5 points. Another Dolphin made this list as Devon Achane had 19.5 points. And Deebo Samuel.
Who? Deebo.
Deebo had 16.2 points. And another Dolphin. All 3 of his Dolphins made this list as kicker Jason Sanders scored 10 points. However, he did have a couple of duds in his starting lineup as Keenan Allen could only muster up 4.9 points. And Amari Cooper could only get 2.6, just missing out on a bigger day as he missed a bomb throw late in the game against the Cowboys for a potential long touchdown. As for some players on his bench that had some really strong games, J.K. Dobbins had 21.4 points on the bench for the Fantastics. Tony Pollard had 16.9 points, and Rashid Shaheed had 14.8 points. As for injuries for the Fantastics, unfortunately, Devon Achane limped off the field with an ankle injury.
Oh, no.
And like I said, right now, he is questionable and has yet to practice. It is a short week, so they might be letting him rest to get as much rehab as possible to get ready to go. But definitely keep an eye on that. As for our next player in this game, Michael's amazing Spidey. Again, he could only muster 79.84 points. Could not get that 80-point threshold. But he did have a top score of Brandon Aubrey, who had 21 points. And, of course, Bijan Robinson.
Pardon me, would you have any Grey Poupon?
The great Bijan had 13.6 points, and he had several duds as the roller coaster man. Calvin Risky could only get 6.5 points, and Travis Kelce only got 4.9 points on the opening night of the NFL season. And Javonte Williams. Oh, Javonte Williams. Are you going to make it to the rant? We'll find out. Javonte Williams only got 2.8 points in the flex spot. And, of course, if we would have known that Christian McCaffrey was not going to play on Friday when a lot of other people did, we would have put in Jordan Mason in that spot, who had a stellar start for the 49ers, had 21.7 points, albeit on amazing Spidey's bench. On to our next game here. We have Corey's Mac Daddy 2s up against Reggie's Line Eyes. Were you following this game at all, Bernie? Did you see how close this one was?
It was close. It came down to that last moment. So Sunday night,
Monday night. Well,
Monday
both,
night.
but
Yeah,
going
Monday night.
going into Monday night, the score was 75.82 for Mac Daddy 2s up with Reggie having 72.72. So it was a 3.1 point differential heading into Monday night. They each had a Jet on their team. Sorry, guys. So it was Garrett Wilson versus Breece Hall. Garrett Wilson had to outscore Breece Hall by 3.1 points to get a tie. Anything more would give Reggie the comeback victory, but it did not happen, as Breece Hall was able to be a top performer here for Corey's Mac Daddy 2s, who did seal the victory at 93.62 to 81.72. And the top performers for Mac Daddy 2s was the Chicago defense, made his top list at 20 points. We went over on Sunday night's show as the defense was dominating the Titans. And, of course, Breece Hall, a.k.a. Barisa Lightning, had 17.8 points. And this guy is a stud, Nico Collins. He looked so good on the field. Every time he was just running, I was like, God, that guy is a man, a monster man. He had 14.7 points. However, Mac Daddy 2s did have some duds, starting with his quarterback conundrum, as Caleb Williams could only get 7.22 points, the lowest scoring quarterback of the league this week. And Michael Pittman Jr. had 5.1 points. He did have one player on his bench who did have a good game at 17.9 points. That was Aaron Jones. As for Reggie's Line Eyes, he had some top performers, as Lamar Jackson had 27.12 points, and Jahmyr Gibbs had 15.4 points, and the engineer Rachaad White just keeps chugging along, getting 13.6 points. However, Line Eyes did have a couple of duds. We'll talk about these guys a little later. Jackson Smith and Jigba could only get 2.9 points, while Terry McLaurin could only get 2.7 points. Will we start McLaurin next week, or will he make it on the bench? We'll discuss. As for good players on his bench, he had a pair of rookies who actually performed quite well. Brian Thomas for the Jacksonville Jaguars had 12.7 points, and Ladd McConkey had 12.4 points. What do you think about those rookie receivers showing out in their first game in the NFL?
I think that is on par. I think there was one rookie that went way too high that didn't, that made a dud list on somebody else's team. But I'm happy to see that those rookies are getting some time. Also, I just want to put in there that it was not Garrett Wilson's fault that he didn't get those points. We're just going to blame Ron on that one.
Okay. All right. That's fair enough. He had a rough day. He's had some moments, but not overall had a rough day. Both these teams made it through the week without any major injuries. All right, on to our next game. This game had the lowest projected points, and they delivered. As we had Ben's brilliant team up against Andrew's Crazy Fish, and this one, like I said, was a low-scoring game at 76.68 for the brilliant team. As Crazy Fish could only get 60.26 points, and Crazy Fish had the lowest score of the week.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
That's the wrong button. Let's see if I can figure out which one
No,
it is. I changed
there is
these.
no
I changed
chance.
these. I changed them. Oh, I'm going to guess one more time.
You lose!
Nope. but he did lose.
He did lose.
I'll have to find it later. Where did it go? Oh my gosh. We'll figure that out next time. As for top scorers for Ben's brilliant team, he only had one, but it was enough. As Anthony Richardson had an inefficient day in the passing game, but a strong game in the fantasy game, as he had 28.08 points. And unfortunately, he had 3 duds as Puka Nacua left the game at halftime, could only muster 6.2 points. George Kittle did all his work in the blocking game, getting 6 points, and DeAndre Swift struggled for the Bears, as most Bears did, getting only 5 points. He'd had no one on his bench who could have helped, so he played pretty much his best lineup that he could, and it just got him to 76 points. Second lowest score of the week, went up against the lowest score of the week, and he got a W. As for injuries, oh man, Puka Nacua, like I said, had a knee injury. Apparently, it was a setback from the injury he had in the preseason. There was question of how much time he would miss. I think they're putting him on the IR as a safety thing to make sure he heals all the way up. I don't think it's a serious injury, but they don't want to take any more chances. So he is going to miss a minimum of 4 weeks, and I believe they have a bye in week 5 or 6. So he's going to be out for the next 5 weeks of NFL time, 4 weeks of his availability. Crazy Fish surprisingly had 3 players make his top scores, even though he had the lowest score of the week. Ramondre Stevenson, I like that. Ramondre Stevenson had 20.1 points. Cameron Dicker, the kicker for the Chargers, had 12 points. And the New Orleans defense had 11 points. Now for the duds, and this list is long. Joe Burrow was battling for the lowest score for quarterbacks with Caleb Williams, but he did outduel him a little bit, getting 8.06 points. Oh, Burrow. Oh, my gosh. And then we had Brandon Ayuk, could only get 3.8 points. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, the sun god, had an eclipse as he could only get 2.8 points. Last year, he had no games with under 14 points until week 14. This year, he's starting off in the dud list. And Dalton Kincaid could only get 1.6 points. And the, what's the word I want? Not protege. The stud rookie coming out of Ohio State, Marvin Harrison Jr., could only get 0.9 points. You know what that means? That is a virtual 0. That is a virtual goose. The good news for Andrew's Crazy Fish is he made it through the week without any major injuries, so he can play all these guys again.
Does he really want to, though?
That's the question. There's some big names on here on this dud list. You got to think they're going to turn this around.
Hopefully.
All right, on to our next game. We have Paul's Cubert Rage up against Katie's King George, and Cubert's Rage could do no wrong as he had a week high of 141.86 points up against Katie's King George, 79.2 points. And this was the biggest blowout of the week as Paul's Cubert Rage won by over 62 points against the ailing Katie's King George. Oh, so we'll get into that a little bit later as well. As for top performers for Cubert's Rage, this list is long. Let's see what 2, 4, 6, 7 out of his 8 players made the top score list. My goodness, this reminds me of last year for this guy. Jaden Daniels kicks it off with 28.16 points. Cooper Kupp, the man, is back to his form from a couple years ago, had 25 points even. Chris Godwin may be returning to form as well with 18.3 points. And Kyan Fairbairn had 17 points, another kicker to make this list. And the Dallas defense picks up where they left off last year, getting 14 points. Justin Jefferson had a solid day at 13.9 points, and Jalen waddled his way to 13.7 points. Can you believe he had all those guys make the top performers list? That's amazing.
That is amazing. And do you remember what his draft grade was by chance?
I don't. Do you have it up somewhere?
I don't. I was just thinking about that.
It wasn't on our draft board. It was not an A. There were only 2 A's, and that was Red Sox Nation and Waddle Away. So it definitely wasn't an A.
Yeah. No, I'm looking on the Yahoo site, and they don't have it up there anymore.
They only had it before the first week, maybe.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
good on him. That's an excellent draft right there, and I think he played his optimal lineup.
Yeah. As far as I can tell, he did. There were no duds, and the only good player on his bench was Devin Singletary. Was that right? With 12.5 points, or did I leave that in from last year?
No, that's somebody
from
else.
last year. Yep, that's why. Yep. No, he had no one on his bench who would have outperformed anyone in his starting lineup. So he played chef's kiss, the perfect lineup. He did have an injury, but it happened before the game as a little bit of a late injury during the practice week last week as T. Higgins was inactive. So we're going to have to monitor to see how he's going to do in the weeks coming forward. But with his team scoring so many points and all these fine receivers, he can let T. Higgins rest on his bench for one more week. Now for Katie's King George, she had some top performers as Mike Evans was able to get 2 touchdowns and scoring 20.6 points. And David Montgomery dominated the overtime. He finished with 15.8 points, scored 11 of those points on the one overtime drive for the Detroit Lions where he scored the winning touchdown. And another kicker made the list as Jake Elliott scored 10 points. Did you watch that Sunday night game to the finish and see the overtime win for the Lions?
I did not watch it all the way to the end. I got an early Monday morning start, but I did see all of the replays the next day. So that was his quarter. He basically ran all those plays and then just ran it into the end zone. So he did great. How many points did he get in that drive alone?
11 points in that drive alone, that one overtime drive. And he finished with 15.8. So he got him all of his work in that. So that's a nice 1-2 punch. Jahmyr Gibbs also got the same score, about 15.4 points. He did it in about 3/4 of play.
Yep.
But like the one guy was fresh. And that, like we said with the first week of the season where guys are getting tired, it's nice to have a quality person running while they're getting tired. And he just ran through him. He just was the strongest guy on the field at that point.
Yeah, from the replays that I saw, it did look like that LA defense was just winded. I don't even think Aaron Donald was on the field for that last set of drives.
Nope, he was home sleeping on the couch as he's retired. There was actually a Twitter thing where they were showing him during the game, like as the game was on TV, his wife videotaped him asleep on the couch while the game was on the TV.
Yep, just like his teammates on the field.
There you go. As for some duds for Katie's King George, she was desperate, picked up Braylon Allen, who actually got 2.2 points, but of course that's not good enough. That's a dud. And she had Chris Olave, so she went with the young guy who's maybe going to break out, and with the old guy Mike Evans, and the old guy was the one who had the points early in the season, as Chris Olave had a huge dud of a game with only 2.1 points, despite the fact that I believe the Saints scored 47 points in their game. He could only get 2.1 fantasy points in that whooping. On the side note here, Katie's King George had to pick up Braylon Allen because of the surprise late scratch of McCaffrey. And I didn't follow my own tip, so I'm not judging in this case. But this was that tip we said last week: fill up your main positions with players that are already playing. So she had to pick up a running back instead of, if she would have had McCaffrey in her flex spot for that last game, she could have pivoted to a receiver. Alan Lazard did perform. I don't know if she would have picked him. There are other ones out there. Joanna Jennings, for example, was also a player. But being that she had to pick a running back, her choices were very limited on that one. So remember that tip, guys. If you want maximum flexibility, you never know what's going to happen, especially with these questionable guys. Keep them in your flex as long as possible. Also, she had a strong bench play from Brian Robinson Jr., who had 16.4 points. As for her injury, last year she had the injury bug, and she's starting off where she left off last year, as Jordan Love had the knee injury. He's going to miss at least a couple weeks, hopefully no more than 3. And McCaffrey is questionable going into week 2. And with the performance of Jordan Mason, they might let him have an extra week to heal on up. How'd you take in that McCaffrey late scratch on Monday?
Oh, that was a surprise. And the first thing I thought was, who in the world drafted Mason? Because we talked about him in our preseason show, and it was you. And one of those things, I wouldn't have expected you to play him just out of the blue, but you've got a solid player on your team now.
Well,
so,
it's arguable that
I don't think they can't put that cat back in the bag there.
Well, it's arguable that he is the one of the waiver wire, big time targets, and he's already off the board.
Yeah. So good on you. And now the big question for you is, do you play him, or do you just let those points accumulate on the bench because where you think McCaffrey's going to go back in?
Well, the good thing is that they're not playing Monday night again, so I'll have a little more chance to make that decision in a real time. Also, potential trade, Katie, if you want to lock up that backfield, although I don't know if I want to give that up, but we can have a trade here. We can talk. I need a lot of help. You need a lot of help. Let's talk.
Let's talk.
All right. Our next game was Knicks waddle away.
Then he waddled away, waddle, waddle. Then he waddled away, waddle, waddle.
Sorry, Alex.
I love that. All right. Knicks waddle away up against Jimerson's Red Sox Nation, our 3-time champion. Oh, whatever. Anyway, this one was actually a decent blowout as Knicks waddle away was able to score 125.82 points, the second highest score of the week, defeating Jimerson's Red Sox Nation, who had 90.92 points. As for top performers for Knicks waddle away, starting off with another kicker. I didn't think Brandon Aubrey could be outdone, but Jake Moody on Monday night had 26 points, making all of his kicks, including a bank in from the upright for the high score for waddle away, followed by Joe Mixon, who was truly a workhorse and a stud for the Texans, who had 25.3 points. Another defense makes this list, as the Minnesota defense had 17 points, and Isaiah Stompy Feet Pacheco had 14.8 points. As for his duds, Sam Laporta had 6.5 points. He did outperform Kelsey, but our little wager there, our little discussion we had on our draft day special, Laporta and Kelsey are both duds. So right now, we'll just have to keep that in mind as we have our who do we think's better going forward. He had no one on his bench who could have helped, as he played the optimal lineup. And he did have one injury, as Mostert did have a chest injury, which is why I didn't see him so often on the field. He was very uncomfortable during the game, and he is questionable going into the Thursday night game. As for Red Sox Nation, his top scorers was Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hulu has live sports, had 22.42 points. Stephon Diggs had 6 catches for 33 yards, but he did have 2 touchdowns to get 18.9 points. And Jerome Ford got all the late catches for 15.9 points. And another kicker. It had a fine game. As you can see, the quarterbacks didn't, so our kickers did. And Tyler Bass had 10 points even. And a dud, a big dud. And I know Mr. Bernie's got something to say about this. Drake London can only get 2.5 points. Are you worried about the Atlanta offense so far, or is this a one game, one bad game?
I think it's week 1, and week 1 is the overreaction week. So I'm going to just chalk it up to week 1. Maybe this preseason, we'll count the week 1 as the preseason game. So I'm not worried yet. But if I get a second loss, and I would be a little bit worried.
So I'm thinking about this now. I don't know how to deliver this. He played so bad, it was like his pants fell down. Drake London's britches were falling down. Oh, you're only getting I don't know. Sorry about that.
Well, how long have you been working on that one?
No, it just came to me. I just didn't know how to tie it in.
Just came to you. That's good. That's good. That's the drink talking to you there.
Yeah, there's a worm in the bottom of this cup here, I think.
Yeah, there you go. And that was for you, Ken.
Yeah, exactly. But he not only did he have a decent game and only one dud, he had some strong players on his bench. Red Sox Nation. It wouldn't have been enough to take over this lead here, as Waddle Way had such a high score. But Baker Mayfield, one of the highest scoring quarterbacks, had 29.66 points, and Xavier Worthy had 19.8 points.
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
As he scored a touchdown on the ground and in the air. And also Zach Moss, he dominated the Cincinnati backfield, scoring 13.1 points. And Red Sox Nation made it through week 1 without any major injuries. On to our final game, the closest game of the week. We have Alex's They Took Our Jobs up against Bernie's Team B. And They Took Our Jobs was able to get this one. We talked about this game on the last episode, how close it was, how much of a jerk DK Metcalf is, and how the injury to Walker, albeit maybe not serious, was just enough to get him off the field long enough to prevent the comeback. This game finished 111.68 to 110.6. This game was just over a 1-point differential. And Bernie's Team B was the highest scoring loser this week.
It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal. You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
All right, now I have a question for you while we're here real quick. Now, I'm not saying that you should be or shouldn't be, are you more in favor of the median scoring standings?
No, like I said just a minute ago there, it's week 1. It's okay. I was the highest scoring loser in week 1, and I was the highest loser on draft day.
All right. Give me 1 second here. All right. So for Alex's They Took Our Jobs, his top performers: Josh Allen. I think he was the highest scorer of the week, at least of starters, at 33.18 points, contributing to 4 touchdowns, followed by Saquon Barkley getting 32.2 points on that Friday night game. And James Sweetfeet Connor had 17.8 points. He did have a couple of duds, however, even though he had a nice score of 111 points, as DK Sabotage Metcalf. I don't know if it's a sabotage if he actually works for the team he's on. So maybe it's just a sabotage of Team B, but he worked out for his manager as he scored only 4.4 points. But like we mentioned on our last show, had a great holding call to take away a touchdown from Kenneth Walker, Texas Ranger. And that was the difference in this game. Again, Christian Kirk also made this list at 3.5 points in the dud list. And he did have a awesome bench player as Jaden Reed scored 31.1 points on the Friday night game for the Packers. As for injuries, Alex's Day Took Our Jobs did have Jake Ferguson leave the game early on Sunday with a knee injury.
Oh, no.
At the moment, he is questionable and may not miss any time, but this is going to be I think he's going to miss at least 1 week, maybe 2, but if he plays, he's going to be banged up. So it's definitely going to be questionable. He wasn't even in the starting lineup for They Took Our Job, so this is just a wait and see. So he may or may not play, but he's definitely going to be slowed down for the next couple weeks at least. Now on to Bernie's Team B, who had a ton of points, was the 4th highest scoring team this week. It didn't end up in a win, however. A.J. Brown had an awesome day at 20.4 points. Alvin Kamara had 19.5 points. And all right, guys, sorry for that little hiccup there. I think we were at Alvin Kamara, who had 19.5 points, and the aforementioned Kenneth Walker, Texas Ranger, for Team B, his favorite running back, because he's so fun to watch and so fun with his nickname here, at 17.9 points. Of course, it would have been nice for him to get 19 points, but 17.9 is pretty good. Rashee Rice had a strong day on Thursday night with 13.8 points, and another kicker, Cairo Santos. What team does he even play for? I'm not even sure.
Oh, he is a Chicago kicker.
Bears, right. Okay.
Yep.
Santos had 13 points. As for his duds, he might have had, well, it wasn't the biggest dud, but it was one of the biggest disappointments as Kirk Cousins could only get 10.2 points. As for his bench players on the bench that would have helped. There's no way you're not going to know this, but Jameson Williams had a monster night on Sunday night. We mentioned his long bomb touchdown during the recording, and he had 21.9 points on the bench. As for the injuries for Team B, he had Kenneth Walker, Texas Ranger, leave with the abdomen injury, and Roma Dunze had a MCL sprain, and he's going to be questionable week to week. I'm expecting him to miss at least 1 week, but these things, MCLs depend on the severity. Generally, they heal in about 3 weeks, unless they're really bad. Right. So he's gonna miss between 1 and 4 weeks. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
So
that's okay. I mean, that's how long it'll probably take for me to acquire Caleb.
Oh yeah.
I already proposed to trade.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, but I haven't had a response yet.
So during the games when our league chat, the manager of Caleb Williams, who is Mac Daddy 2's, said, "Who wants Caleb Williams?" And before I could even finish typing, I will. Team B's like, "I'll take him."
So I offered a straight up Will Levis for Caleb Williams trade.
I mean, they both suck. So that's
exactly.
so far. I mean, yeah. All right, so that is the wrap-up of the first games here. Let's see where we left off. So with that being said, now the first week of games are in the book. Let's take a look at the standings. All right, I did not write these down, so I'm looking at a small screen here. So in first place is, if you can pull this up to help me out, Bernie, that'd be great. Yeah. In first place, we have Cubert's Rage, who's at the top of his division. I believe he's in the Snap division. Yes. So second place, can you read these off for me? Do you have the standings? Can you get to them or not?
Yeah, yep, I can get to them. Give me a second here. All right, so you got it up on the screen, right?
It's up on the screen. It's just tiny for me to read, yeah.
So Cubert's Rage is in the Snap division. He is in the first spot. We've got Waddle Away in the Crackle division. He's in the number 2 spot. And in the Pop division, They Took Our Jobs is in the number 3 spot. Then we go to staying in the Pop division. Fantastics is number 4. Then we jump back up to Mac Daddy 2's. He's in number 5. Ben's Brilliant Team is number 6. Number 7. Oh, Team B. That would be me. I like that. 7's not too bad. Red Sox Nation is number 8. Number 9 is Lion Eyes. Number 10 is Amazing Spidey.
Yuck.
And Number 11 is King George, and number 12 is Crazy Fish.
Crazy Fish had a tough start. I meant to mention this before when I was going through the matchups here of Brilliant Team and Crazy Fish. These two teams took a year off last year, and they're obviously rusty in their fantasy game. They need to get their conditioning up when it comes to fantasy points, but they'll get there. They'll get back in shape.
Maybe they were holding out for bigger contracts and they didn't get any practice time or anything like that.
There you go. Yeah. As we have, I meant to mention that as well. Ayuk made the dud list. That is now the third receiver who held out, who had a rough start to their season. So again, our data points are filling up. Holdouts are starting their season off slow. Hopefully, it doesn't mean that their whole season will be slow or bad, but it definitely gets them off to a slower start.
Yeah, it's almost like maybe I wanted them to hold out for week 1, so I didn't get that low score. And not me personally, because I didn't draft any of them, but those managers. So,
all right, guys. So that's the end of the rewind. There, we went over the standings. Now it is time. It is time at your favorite segment, and mine. Sometimes it's the first Mike Rant of the 2024 season.
Baby Rant. Karen Rant.
I don't care whose fault it is. I'm going to tell you exactly what I think.
Mike Rant.
All right, guys, I've got a couple things to rant about, and I'm going to start with this one. Peacock, I am not buying your service. I am sorry. I'm not watching your games. You play 3 games a year. That you play reruns of things that are on the UHF stations on antenna. I'm not buying your service. I listen to the radio on Westwood One. It's free. Go to their site, westwood1.com, and you get all the national broadcasts on the radio. And you get to listen to Kevin Harlan, who is way better than anything NBC can offer right now. So we're starting with that. Peacock, go peacock yourself right out of here. I don't know what that is. Our next rant, this one I've got a double here. And this is on I have a little bit of it, but mostly it's on behalf of King George. This is for you, King George. I'm so angry for you. I can't believe you have injuries, troubles last year, and right off the bat, your first overall pick once again is missing time. And the thing that makes it more upsetting is I think the Niners knew. I think they knew he wasn't going to play all week. They could have given you a heads up. They could have given me a heads up. I would have loved to play Jordan Mason instead of Javonte Williams in the Denver Broncos. We don't want to see any Broncos players in our lineups anymore. So screw you, Peacock. Screw you, injuries. I'm so sorry for Katie. I'm rooting for you until we play each other. So I hope you win this week. And that is the end of the first Mike Rant. Bring Mr. Bernie back in here. All right, so...
How do you feel?
I'm really upset.
Oh,
I made myself
ranting,
upset.
Typically ranting makes you feel better. You let it all out.
Yeah. I'm going to need a little time. I'll get there.
Okay.
Do you have any thoughts on the rants here? Am I overreacting a little? Well, of course I'm overreacting. Are they worth the rant though?
On the Peacock, no, that is a legitimate rant. The world that we live in now, after we had all cut the cord, well, some of us, we all got rid of the satellite dishes on top of our roofs. Now all these streaming services. I mean, it's getting a little bit ridiculous, just a little bit. So I'm with you there. As far as the players go, they don't really care about fantasy in that world. So I'm okay. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
I just feel bad for Katie. I feel so bad for Katie.
No, you know what? King George beats me in fantasy football. She beats me in poker. She's a winner. And I don't feel bad when winners, get a little dirty. So it's okay.
Okay. You heard that here, Katie. I am completely on your side. I'm a fan. Bernie is apparently a rival. I'm gonna have to make that the rivalry week when we get to that game.
Yeah, right. Wait, let's be clear though. I am also a fan of Katie.
Oh, fair enough. Yes.
Yeah. I think she's awesome, and I don't mind losing to her. I just lose to her a lot. So when she doesn't win, I'm okay.
Gotcha. Fair enough. All right, guys. We are now. This is for our more loyal followers here, as this episode is going to be put out right before the waiver wire runs. So right after this show, Bernie and I are going to put our waiver claims in, and you're going to find out if you beat us out on our next show. But we do want to go over the waiver wire targets. At least one thing, these are guys you should maybe look for now, but if they don't get picked up on the first run of waivers, these are guys you can easily pick up tomorrow on the free agent list, at least in our league. Waivers run, and then anyone who doesn't get picked up by waivers by the 4 a.m.-ish transaction period, they go right to the free agent list. So these are still guys you might pick up even if you don't put a waiver claim in. So I'm going to pass this one over to Bernie. What do you have for your waiver wire targets?
Okay, and before I start, I just also want to give full disclosure that I'm not holding anything back. I'm not trying to sway you one way or the other. I'm giving it to you as I see it. So depending on how good you think I am at my game, you're either going to listen to me and go with what my advice, or do the exact opposite of what I say, and then you might win. So here we go.
Wait, before you start, I'm
Yep.
going to make a guess.
Yep.
I might be right. I'm going to say $86 fab for Daniel Jones.
Oh, 85 because I need 15 for a kicker.
Oh,
So-
fair enough. You know, Cade York got cut again yesterday.
Oh, jeez.
Sorry.
Okay, that's all right. Let's get into this.
Yeah,
All
go
right,
ahead. Go ahead. I'm
we'll,
sorry.
We'll start with the quarterbacks, and these quarterbacks will start up. Their outlook is up a little bit, so we're going to start with Geno Smith over in Seattle. So we know that Ken Walker is going to be the face of Seattle offense, but Smith did more as a runner this last game here than he did last year. So, including some rushing scores, he's at least a bye week injury depth kind of player. Adds a little bit of value to your bench. If his legs are going to churn like they did in that first game, he's going to add some value. So if you're struggling at the quarterback position, Geno is at the top of my list there. Also,
Okay.
Sam Darnold, the Minnesota quarterback. Darnold was dealing in New Jersey. Started the game 12 of 12.
That's what it was, 12. Okay.
Yep, including a 99-yard touchdown drive. The game got out of hand, so we didn't get to see, his full potential of, game script playing from behind or going, toe to toe with somebody. The loss of Jordan Addison will hamper the offense, and the 49ers are a tough matchup, but the potent pass offense that the Vikings should have, Darnold is worth a spot on your bench or possibly a starter in week 3 or 4 here. And then rounding out this little group is Justin Fields. So Fields is safe with the ball. He didn't throw any crazy interceptions, but he does add some value as a runner, even though it wasn't really designed for him, the offense right now. So as a QB1, I think he's going to be okay. And he's got a really good connection with Pickens. So he should start against Denver, and I think he's a good pickup as well.
Can I interject here for one quick moment?
Yeah, of course, anytime.
All right. So Fields is interesting. Of course, I picked him up and dropped him because that's kind of my revolving door space.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever. It was more to just kind of hold him through the weekend just to see what might happen.
Yeah.
Denver seems to be like a great matchup, so that part's good. And last year, I forget what he had, but Chicago killed Denver last year. So he had one of his best games of the year against Denver last year. Different teams, but just saying. But the thing is, I don't know if he's gonna play this week or not. You just don't know that. Russell Wilson was not active this week, but he was. In the NFL, you're allowed to have a third quarterback dress who doesn't go against your active roster number. So he was in uniform, in pads as an emergency quarterback. You can only come in if both guys get hurt. You can't trick the system. But obviously Wilson was healthy enough to be the emergency quarterback. So I'm not saying that's going to make he might be emergency quarterback again. Yeah. They might even change the guard. Who knows what they're going to do there? But when you pick up these guys, you always pick up these guys early in the week, and then by the end of the week, you're like, oh, the other guy I thought he was replacing is healthy enough to play now.
Yeah, and I think the coach over there, he's a hot hand kind of guy. So I think when Jordan Mason was kind of running their offense for a little bit, and they had a little bit of controversy going on with what was it, Pickens?
Yeah,
not Pickett.
Sorry.
Yeah. the coach likes to, if you're doing good and there's no reason to take you out, I think he would keep him in if they're winning. So, but again, he's not the first one on my list. So I would definitely be cautious trying to play him.
So what kind of a price range you have for these kind of guys if you're in the not just as like a what the heck, but like if you're actually, there's a couple teams out there who are pretty needy in the quarterback position. So what kind of price range are you thinking? I mean, I don't want you to tip your hand too much, but are these $5 or less, $15 or more kind of guys? What do you think?
I won't put a hard dollar amount on it. I would say that if you're in need, I would make it maybe a range of like 5 to 15% of what you have, depending on, I mean, you know your league, you know who's going to need a quarterback, you know how they bid in our league. So it's one of those things. I know if you're ending with a 0 or a 5, you're probably not going to get it. If it's a popular player, you got to go into that, like, that 2 or 3 ending or that 6 or 7 ending, get that little $1 or $2 bump over that. So, but yeah, I wouldn't spend too much fab on them. And unless you're in dire need, and I don't think there's too many managers in our league that are in a dire need for a quarterback.
Do you consider those 3 guys in a very similar tier?
Yes, I put those 3 in because they're going to start, or they have started.
So then I would say a strategy would be like to put like a $2 bid on all 3 of them, and whichever one you get, you get.
Yeah, your strategy confuses the heck out of me.
Yeah,
I've listened to your strategy before, and it's a good strategy, but there's too many moving parts for my brain.
Gotcha.
If I did that, it'd just be like, well, who am I going to end up getting? And it kind of throws me for a loop. So I'll go full disclosure here. I probably won't put a bid on any of these guys. For this
but these are the top
one.
guys if you're looking for, yeah.
Yes, I might wait and see who's off the board.
Even better. Instead of putting $2, you can get probably at least one, if not a choice between 1 or 2, if not all 3 for $0.
Exactly,
early on.
and see who's left, and then go from there. Because I really do want to give Cousins another week, and that he's my starter. I won't start Will Levis over Cousins right now because they're both bad. I'll give Cousins the benefit of the doubt for week 1. So that's my plan in my situation, and I have bad quarterbacks, so I think I might have the worst set of quarterbacks collectively out of everyone in our league. So,
all right, let's get to the next position here. What else you got?
Yeah, so we got running backs. Oh, just a quick. I won't read any notes on these guys, but guys that you might look for the future here. You got Michael Penix. If Cousins just can't get it going. One that I do have circled and a star watch list is Jameis Winston. The Browns fans really want him to get that thing going. Your favorite guy, I think you had a rant before a rant, Malik Willis. He's gonna play. So, and then 2 guys that might come in if their starters just aren't any good. Drew Lock and for the Giants, and Mason Rudolph for Tennessee. So just keep them on your radar. They got decent offensive weapons on those teams. So that's where I would go with that. All right, let's move on to running backs here.
Sure.
All right, so for running backs at the top of my list, and his outlook is up, I would say considerably. So this might put him in like a 15 to 30%.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Tank Bigsby in Jacksonville.
Okay.
So Bigsby outplayed Travis Etienne, and Etienne had a costly fumble on the goal line, and fumbles are no good. So it's possible that Bigsby has turned this into a full-blown committee. We'll see. And if he gets the goal line work, he'll have more of a valuable part. I would see it's hard for how good he played for him not to start getting the goal line work because of the fumble that ATN had.
Are you pricing him that way as a shared backfield, or are you looking that he may take that one over sooner than later?
I think he may take that one over sooner than later.
Okay, so it's like he has a role, so it's not worthless, but you're actually, the money you're spending is for the projected chance of being in the lead back on that team.
Right. And obviously if he's going to be on your bench, you tend, go to the lower end of that 15%.
Right. Okay.
And then he still needs an ETN injury or just a really bad play for him to become the full-blown guy. But he's got a ton of upside if that happens. And then my next guy, second tier. Tank Bigsby's at the top of my running back tiers as far as waiver wires. The next one, a little bit less. I would put him at maybe like a 5 to 10%er. Bucky Irving for Tampa Bay.
He looked good.
Yeah, Irving got some run at the end of the blowout win over Washington. He looked like he might deserve more early down work over Rashad White, but Rashad White did look good as well. He was inefficient, but he didn't look bad. I think you had the comment on White that somehow he just gets fantasy points, and you don't see it on the field when you're watching it.
You can pencil him in for 13.5 points. It seems like every week.
Right. He's more Bucky Irvin is more than just like a backup. He could be an RB1 for that team. He'd probably be an RB2 in your lineup, RB3 flex play in your lineup. Then we got Justice Hill at Baltimore. Next set of rankings here. I've got two players. I got Justice Hill and Alexander Madison.
Okay.
Justice Hill for Baltimore. I think he outsnapped Derrick Henry, and he was a big part of the passing game for the Ravens. So he'll be worth something in a PPR flex kind of look against the Raiders. And then Alexander Madison, what do we have here? He had the most outstanding play and only touchdown for the Raiders. So he'll probably get more snaps than Zamir White. If White can't get on track, then I would see Madison kind of taking over that job. But again, I would put him at that lower tier of that like 3 to 7% kind of, if something happens with White, Madison is going to be the guy there. And then to round them up, I just got Jeff Wilson Jr. just because Achane and Mozart are banged up. And so that would put Jalen Wright up there. And then Wilson, Wilson's a known commodity. He probably can't last a season.
Right.
Probably won't last a season, but he might get you through some tough weeks if his card gets called up.
So if I may here, I want to make another point here. So yes, the Dolphins running backs, they're both questionable, Mostert and Achane. They have a short week, which is what makes this the interesting part. Mm-hmm. So their missing practice could be because they want to get as healthy as they can prior to them playing.
Yep.
The interesting thing is, I would say Jalen Wright and Wilson are out there in most leagues, but the same way you said Jordan Mason was already drafted by me in this case. Jalen Wright was also drafted. He is off the board in the Wingman Fantasy Football League.
Yep,
just to show you what type of I wouldn't call our league like pros, but like I'm always pleasantly surprised when I hear some of these shows are like, yeah, pick up this guy. Like our guys already drafted these guys. The first guys that are out there for other leagues we picked them up prior to the big news,
Yeah, and so for our listeners that aren't in our league, you're probably like you've got like 5 and 6 players on these waiver wire lists here. That's because everyone is on somebody's team already in our league, and I've geared this list for our league specifically.
Right.
I think later on, once the show starts getting bigger and bigger, we might change the waiver wire format a little bit, where we can, give some information for some Superflex leagues or some dynasty leagues or stuff like that, where we get a little bit further along the list here. But all right, let's move on. The wide receiver, tight end, I grouped them together because that's how we do it in our league. At the top of the list, if you got it, go. If you need him, go get him. Isaiah Likely, Baltimore tight end. We all know what happened. He looked like a stud. I'm not even going to read my notes because we all saw it. He looked like a stud. He's going to be on the field. Lamar likes to throw it to him. Just go get him.
He had a monster game, and there were still points that he could have had, like that toe at the back of the end zone. They threw another end zone target on that same drive where he jumped high and fell on his shoulder. He had a big game, but he was still the target in the red zone even after that. He could have had like a 30-point game.
Yeah. So go get him. Demarcus Robinson on the Rams, wide receiver. Puka Nacua is going to be on the IR with his PCL injury. Robinson should get run with the starters for at least a month. And he was fantasy relevant even with Nacua and Kupp out there last year.
Yep.
So he could be a good flex play coming up against with upside against the Cardinals.
He came in last year when Tutu Atwell got banged up, and when he took that job and Atwell came back health-wise, he did not relent. He kept that job. Tutu Atwell had a fine start to the season. I don't know, first 4 to 7 weeks.
Yep.
And then I think he just got banged up because I don't think he lost the job. I think he lost it. He missed time, and Robinson took the job over. So he's got a rapport already with Stafford. He did very well last year, considering the type of player as a third receiver. He did what Tutu Atwell did those first 3 weeks. He's going to get those 4 catches and hopefully one's a touchdown. He's not a big time starter, but if you're desperate for a wide receiver, like some teams are out there, he's someone you might want to look at.
All right,
do you have while I'm here, just sorry again, you have a Robinson there? Did you have a Tyler Johnson, the other receiver for the Rams, on that list as well?
He might be further down
because they both had a similar stat line in this game on Sunday night.
Yeah, so I have him down into the next. He's 2 tiers down for me.
Okay, so
so
of those 2 guys, even though they're same stat line last week, you have a clear delineation between Robinson and Tyler Johnson.
Yeah, Johnson had the biggest play of the night,
right?
But I think the better player is DeMarcus Robinson.
Okay, fair.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. All right. So the next 2 players, I'll go into a little more depth here. Or Greg Dortch, Arizona wide receiver. Dortch was the hottest Cardinal receiver all summer, so it's not a huge shock that he led the team with catches and yards. The passing game was not that great going downfield. So this isn't the design I think they have going into the future here, but Dortch has proven at least solid in a PPR league, which we are half PPR league. So he could be a little bit more there. I think Kyler is going to get. He's not going to be the same game plan every week, and so I think you're going to see a little less of the running with Kyler like we did in one, and more kind of looking downfield.
Okay.
And then Alex Pierce, I'll round this out.
Yeah.
Alex Pierce was Richardson's favorite target. Is it worth it? I think so. That's kind of what Richardson's MO is going to be, is get the ball, like backyard football. You run down there and I'm going to throw you the ball down there. So he had a couple good things going on there. Okay. So the next couple, I'm just going to read the names.
Okay.
We've got a little bit up here. I would say these are probably like 1 to 5% of your fab dollars you can kind of go into. Kobe Parkinson for the LA Rams tight end. And if you got any comments on these guys, you stop me.
Yep.
Adonai, I don't know if I'm saying that right. Adonai Mitchell, in Indianapolis wide receiver. Jalen McMillan, Tampa Bay wide receiver.
Adonai Mitchell.
Adonai. Yeah.
Similar to that anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
Adonai.
Jalen McMillan, Tampa Bay wide receiver.
Yep.
Tyler Johnson, LA Rams wide receiver.
Right.
Tucker Kraft, Green Bay tight end. Jalen Naylor, Minnesota wide receiver. Jordan Whittingham. Now that
he plays for the Rams, correct? But he didn't get on the field, or I didn't see him too much.
Jalen Naylor ends that tier, and then the last tier I have is Jordan Whittingham, the Rams wide receiver, Wan'Dale Robinson, depending on what happens in that quarterback situation. Giants wide receiver, Alan Lazard, the Jets wide receiver, Foster Moreau, New Orleans tight end, Jordan Atkins, Cleveland tight end. I think Njoku got.
I think it's Akins, but yeah, I got you.
I'm sorry. Akins.
That's fine. Yep.
And Njoku is out with a high ankle sprain.
Right.
And Devon Vele, Denver wide receiver.
Yep.
So he took on a pretty big role in the pass offense and got a lot of short targets, which is what Bo Nix is going to be good for.
Right.
So
that's very thorough list. I would say most of those guys are just kind of keep an eye on. Put them in your watch list things so you don't, because they're guys that you're going to forget next week potentially.
Exactly.
But like when you hear that nugget of news about a particular player maybe being hurt, you're like, that's right. That was the guy who played that time or had a rapport brewing with the quarterback. You don't have to like relearn the names. Start putting some of these guys just in your watch list at the very least, and be ready to move. You probably get them for free. These are going to be your Sunday morning pickups, Saturday night pickups, whenever that time is. And you don't want to be searching through who do I need to replace somebody who's hurt the last minute. You already have them in your watch list ready to sort through that way. So those are all really good names. I would
Yeah.
say most of those guys would be. I wouldn't put any money on them or probably even pick them up yet, but they're all definitely guys to keep an eye on for sure.
Exactly. With the list, especially the wide receiver list, that's probably just like the first 3 or 4, maybe 5 that you're going to go and actually kind of put a small little bit on if you need something at that position. The rest of them though are definitely watch list guys. So
Very good. All right. Well, we're going to put some of these guys to the test as we're going to start a new game this time. Pardon me. Called Start Bench Cut. We're going to go through some players who had some rough weeks this week, mostly, or some tough start sit decisions. And essentially, are these guys we're going to stick with? Say, a little example here, a little teaser would be like a Drake London who had such a bad game. Are you going to start him once more and just say that chalk him to a bad game, put him on your bench, or was it so bad you're going to cut these guys? And if we think we're going to cut these guys, we're going to quickly test to see if it's worth cutting them for the guys who are at the top of your list at the position that makes sense here. So we're going to start off right now with Javonte Williams. Had a very awful game. The Denver Broncos looked bad, and Knicks got worse and worse as the pressure got greater and greater. So first off, we're both going to stay here. He started for me last week. If you had him, would you start him, or would you bench him, or would you cut him?
I would probably bench him. I don't like Sean Payton, but Sean Payton's a good coach. So if he's got a game plan and they're trying to execute it, I would give it a time. I wouldn't cut him yet.
I agree. I don't have a lot of good options, but I'm looking up and down to try and get him on my bench this week. Definitely not going to cut him. He still led the team in snaps. The leverage of plays were awful. We're going to find out if Seattle was the good defense or if Denver was the bad offense. We're going to find that out, at the end here. But he's definitely staying on the team. He's not getting cut, and I'm doing my best to find someone else to put in front of him. Our next player here is Mike Williams, who was active for the Jets on Monday night, but only played a few snaps. I think it was 4 snaps, if I recall, either way, or 4%. It was a very small order number. He's coming back from an ACL injury, so he didn't get any run, but he's rehabbing, and he was active that first week. So is this guy? He's definitely not a start. Let's just start with that. Is he a bench or a cut? He's kind of the end of your bench wide receiver. What would you do there with him?
Whose team is he on?
He's on the Jets.
No. Who's fantasy?
He's on
team?
My team.
Oh, we're still on your. Okay, let's see what you got here. I'm pulling up your team here. Oh, you know what? I probably if you're gonna pick somebody up, looking at your roster here, I would probably cut. He would be the guy I would cut.
So let's go to the list here. Let's go to your top 3 receivers real quick and just name those off real quick. Your top 3 waiver wire receivers, if you could.
Receivers. Isaiah Likely, Demarcus Robinson, and Greg Dortch.
How many of those guys would you put ahead of Mike Williams?
If I had to start out of those guys, I would put 2. I would put Isaiah Likely or Demarcus Robinson over Mike Williams at this point.
Fair enough. I don't disagree with you. I'm not sure how I'm going to handle this because this is like the low point of the season for him, being that he didn't play due to injury and rehab, so he's only going to get on the field more. The Jets were playing. I'm not sure if his first name is Xavier, but Gibson. They're mostly known for a punt return. He was their third receiver, and he didn't get any targets. So he's easily going to be the one that Mike Williams will take the job from when he gets healthy. And I think Lazard was just on the field too because of the lack of talent there. So I could see Mike Williams even taking over Lazard's spot. So I'm definitely going to wait here with Williams because let's see if Aaron Rodgers can get it together. And I think he has a chance to be the 2 on that team. And like I said, he's coming from his lowest point. So I don't want to drop him at his lowest point when he's going to get better.
Right. But if Mike Williams, or I'm sorry, if Aaron Rodgers is going to get it together, then he's not going to do it this week because who are they playing here?
Oh, no, he's definitely not a start. He's in the bench cut consideration here.
Oh, okay. Okay. I gotcha.
Yeah, these guys don't fall in all 3 categories. Most of it, it's either start bench or bench cut kind of thing.
Yeah,
all right, moving on to our next player here. We have Chuba Hubbard, who had an awful game. He seemed to be out-snapped or at least equally played by Miles Sanders. So this one is a question, do you hold on to him? And if you recall, in the preseason, this was a player that we were only worried about for the first 3 to 4 or 5 games, as he was just going to take the the lead while we're waiting for Brooks to get healthy, the rookie for the Panthers. So his shelf life is already limited unless he balled out. He did not ball out. His window is closing of his guaranteed play time, so we thought, and now it's not even guaranteed as he's splitting time with Miles Sanders. So this guy is, I would think, a bench cut candidate. Where do you put him, bench or cut?
I would put him as a cut. Just because of the team he's on too. Whose fantasy team is he on? I'm sorry, man. You got to let me know this.
I don't know. I think he's on Fantastics, but I'm not positive.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you had that list. Okay.
I don't.
Yeah, you're good. I got it then. I would probably cut him, honestly. There's better options going on the waiver than that right now, so I would not hang on.
If he was out on the waiver wire, where would he fall into your rankings there of your top 3, 4, 5 running backs on your waiver priority?
Ooh. If he was out there, he would definitely be behind Justice Hill.
Okay, so that's a clear cut then. He's not even the second, third guy. He's your 5th guy out there on the waiver wire.
Yeah, I would have Tank over him. I would have Bucky Irving over him.
Okay.
So he'd be right there with Justice Hill, over Madison and over Jeff Wilson.
Gotcha. So we're not telling you to do this stuff. We're talking about it here. And like I said, he was like the Jerome Ford, where he had a short shelf life to get you off to a start, waiting for guys to come back from injury, and he no longer has that automatically. So his value is really plummeted there. So that's we have him as a cut. Our next player here is a rookie who had a medium slow start, Keon Coleman. I don't think he'd make it into the starting lineup yet, but he didn't. He was like 1 of 5 receivers. I think you know the answer. This was pretty obvious, but is he a bench or a cut?
He's a cut.
Keon Coleman's a cut.
Yeah, I think so.
So you'd have Likely ahead of him and Robinson potentially.
Yeah. See, it straight up, yes, but it really depends on who else that person had. Like if that person doesn't really have anybody else to cut, that's the cut guy.
Okay.
If another player needs to come,
if he's
into
the
the
worst
roster,
receiver on your team and you're looking to improve that spot, he's the one who's going to go.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's why.
I mean, in fairness, we're pulling these guys up from our league, our teams in our league, but we're also trying to make this a little broader, because not everyone's going to have,
Yeah. Okay.
He could be the 4th receiver or the 6th receiver. We're not, and we can't know where he lines up on everyone's team. But if he is your last receiver on your team or one of your last 2, he's not an automatic hold. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Exactly.
Fair enough. This one's a little easier in terms of cutting. We have Marvin Harrison Jr. Did he disappoint so much that he's not going to be in your starting lineup next week? If you had Marvin Harrison Jr. and let's just say he was your early pick. So in all fairness, you don't have a lot of guys ahead of him, but say you have say he's your 2nd or 3rd receiver and you only have to play 2 of them. Is he an automatic start next week? Or are you looking for other options?
He is not an automatic start, but he's not a cut. He is a bench.
Right.
Just because he's who he is. I need to see it now. It was too much hype in my opinion.
Hype. That's the word I wanted before.
Yeah. Too much hype in my opinion. So personally, I would put him on the bench after that performance. I mean, a virtual goose, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So my question, if you had Likely, would you play? Obviously, you're not dropping Harrison for Likely, but if you had both in your team, would you start Likely this week ahead of Harrison?
Yes.
Okay, there you go, guys.
Yeah.
That's a bold move right there. I'm not saying it's wrong, but that just shows you how much. Now I know you were lower on him. You thought the hype was you were fighting the hype, if you will, a little bit.
Yeah,
not falling into
and not
it.
to take anything away from the player itself.
Right.
But that's a lot of pressure to put on a kid. So
I totally agree.
Yeah.
All right, so this one is falls in line with like one of your last running backs has a role on his team. Tyler Algier, he is the backup for Bijan Robinson. But again, looking at our top two or 3 running backs, who would you rather have? Tyler, I keep forgetting who your running backs are. Would you rather have Tyler Algier or any of your top 3 waiver wire looks? Bigsby,
Irving, and Hill. Yeah, I would take all 3 of those over Algier.
Yeah.
Algier is not a keeper for me.
Okay.
But now that's saying that Bijan got the usage that Christian McCaffrey just got, or had in the past. So
right.
If Bijan is Atlanta's Christian McCaffrey, that's a different story. the Joker, what's his name, is gone. So it's Algier, and I don't know who the third back is in Atlanta at the moment.
I don't have it. I don't have it on top of my head either.
Yeah. So that's for
I would
me,
say he's a hold if you have Bijan Robinson, as he's your handcuff in your insurance policy.
exactly.
But there's other handcuffs out there that you could get if he's not directly tied to other players on your team.
Exactly. And I think the Bucky Irving Tampa Bay's offense and Baltimore's offense has shown some life. And then Tank Bigsby's is just going to be it's just going to be slightly above those two other guys. So I would get rid of Algier if I needed a running back and those guys were on the board.
All right, we're going to skip ahead here a little bit as we're running a little long on time here. So similar to I might skip these guys too. Real quick, not too much into it. Is Chris Olave staying in your starting lineup, or is he going to be on the bench for a week while you figure it out?
He's on the bench.
Okay, so you're reacting to this first week, the guys who really underperformed, and you're gonna let someone else try and take that spot, huh?
Yeah, because I'm assuming that Chris Olave is not your wide receiver 1. He's got to be your wide receiver 3 or flex option.
He was a second round pick.
He wouldn't be my wide receiver 2. He would be my wide receiver 3 or flex option.
Okay, fair enough. All right, now we're going to get into some interesting ones here. As we in our league anyway, we do have a couple teams who are really, at least through week 1, have really bad quarterbacks as of now. We have a rotisserie of quarterbacks. This is all on one team in this instance. So we're going to take it from this vantage point. We have Caleb Williams, who scored the lowest points of any quarterback this week, Deshaun Watson, and Bo Nix. That is a tough crew. How many of those guys are you considering dropping at all? How many of these guys are you considering dropping? Caleb Williams, Watson, and Nix.
I would drop Watson.
You drop Watson?
Yeah, I would drop Watson or yes.
I think I dropped Nix before Watson, but I might drop them both.
Yeah, exactly. I probably would drop Nix before Watson if I'm looking at it. And no, but you know what? No, I've been burned by Watson. I had him on my team last year. I would drop Watson. I'm gonna get on the Jameis Winston bandwagon and fly that flag. So hopefully before Nick Chubb comes back, Watson will not be starting.
Okay.
And then I'll be a happy man.
So you're putting your foot in the ground there. I would say of these two guys, Watson is more likely to be picked up after a drop than Nix.
Yep.
But you're like, I don't care. You're putting a sabotage out there for another team.
Yeah. That's one I don't think is an overreaction from the week 1. I think that's just a continuation of the past, 5 years, 3 years?
3 or 4.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I would start Caleb again. If those are my 3 guys, I would start Caleb.
All right, we're gonna stay in that same idea here, and this one's closer to your team here, as it actually is your team.
Oh,
you have Cousins and Levis, another poor group of quarterbacks, as it turns out. You don't have to tell me who you're picking up or if you're picking up anybody, but are you riding with these guys a little longer, or are you looking for help off the waiver wire?
Well, I proposed a trade. I'm trying to get rid of Levis for Caleb. So hopefully the week 1 points would make that a favorable trade. Somebody would want to look at that. I'm going to ride with Kurt one more week, but I am looking at the quarterbacks on the waiver wire. And I probably, like I said earlier, I probably won't bid on them, but if they're there after everybody puts their bids in, I might pick somebody up and then drop Taysom Hill. So,
all right, let's do a couple more here before we wrap this up. Let's see. Rico Dowdle, disappointed as he didn't get as much work as I was hoping. I actually saw Dalvin Cook on the field a little bit, and Ezekiel Elliott was the one who ran out the clock for them, got most of his points and his touchdown later in the game, but it wasn't Dowdle. You think that'd be a great time to get him some work and a good time to rest one of your older players? And they played Zeke most of the way towards the end of the game. I didn't get a great read on the splits in the first half, but stat-wise, Dowdle didn't show up. So even if he got carries, it didn't do much with him. So is Dowdle, now he's a 3-way share in the backfield with the Cowboys. We thought he might take a step forward, and it appeared he didn't. Are we waiting a little longer before we make a move on Dowdle, or is he someone we'd be willing to drop? Not necessarily willing to drop for that Bigsby type of pickup?
Yes, I would drop Dowdle. I don't want any part of that Dallas backfield at the moment.
Okay.
I think it's too toxic, or toxic is not the right word, maybe chaotic for me and my heart condition. So I think that I would rather have Hill or Bigsby in that situation.
I'm going to do one more here because it kind of falls in line with our bad performers in week one.
Yep.
And it seems like you're bailing. So Mark Andrews, would you put him back in your starting lineup, or are you bailing on him for 1 week at least?
For 1 week, I wouldn't drop him. I would just bench him. He's too much of a known commodity for me to bench or to drop. So I would just I would put him on the bench, considering I had players to play above him in the flex positions.
Gotcha. All right, guys, we're going to wrap that up right here. Thank you, Bernie. You did a great job going through all those waiver wire targets and priorities and stuff. So that was great to get a lot of names out there. Some of these guys we wouldn't have heard of. So it's a deep dive, especially like the Valet. I like him from Denver. He's a guy that probably people don't know, but he was on the field quite a bit.
Yeah.
So those are good names. So just keep in mind. Now you know some of these players that other managers won't even know about. You can get the head start on these guys. So thank you for that work. I do appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right, guys. With that being said, don't forget you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, and YouTube Music. Go ahead and find our video content at wingmanfantasyfootball.com/YouTube. Go ahead and leave a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave in a comment. Let us know how dumb we are and who we drop or not drop. Go ahead and do that, and you'll get your next comment read into our mailbag. Also, you can also find all of our videos and audio feeds on wingmanentertainment.net/podcast. So with that being said, guys, may your glasses be full, your mugs stay frosty.
And remember, waiver wire, much like this bar, is where dreams are born and broken.
Oh, born and broken. Oh, we got a lot. What a range. All right, guys. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.